money. I like money. I don't hate money.
Something important to realize, like not every customer is your customer.
I've done what I can today, yesterday. I'm going to do what I can tomorrow to be better.
Hello, everyone. It is Nick Capobianco here with Michael Stearns. We're flipping the script a little bit on the Mission Control podcast today. I'm going to be doing some interviewing. As a roofer myself, I've always wondered a lot of things about marketing. Had a lot of questions. I always go to my good friend Mike here and ask a lot of questions about marketing for our clients and everything. So I figured, you know what? Let's have a reverse podcast today, and I'll reach out to Mike and ask him questions, and hopefully it can help us roofers learn a little bit more. But today on the Mission Control podcast, brought to you by Roofr, we have myself, Nick Capobianco from Roofr. I'm a roofer by trade. I've been doing this since I was 12 years old. Been running a company, ran a company with my parents, and now been with Roofr for 6 years now, and been working with Mike for the past 3 now?
It's been a minute. Dude, and I just want to take a second to say thank you. Thank you for having me on today.
Of course. You know, when I think about marketing and I think about Mission Control podcast, I think of Mike Stearns. Partially because you're one of the best in the game for marketing, but also this is your podcast. So that's another reason why I thought about you.
Fantastic. I got a quick question.
Yeah.
What did the ocean say to the beach?
I don't know. I was going to say something about wave. Go.
Didn't say anything. Just waved. You were so close.
I was so close, but so far.
It's a game of inches, folks.
Just getting set up with the dad jokes. Just getting them ready for the season to come.
It's a game of inches. That reminds me, any given Sunday, the Al Pacino speech, the halftime speech. And I got to tell you, if you haven't seen the speech, I mean, I'd watch the movie. It's a great movie. But if not, just watch the halftime speech. God bless him.
I watch it every Monday morning. That's how I wake up.
Smart
Get a couple
guy.
slaps in the face.
Yeah.
Get a
smelling
hoo-ah,
salts?
and then we're ready. Oh, yeah.
Okay. Good.
Yeah.
Good.
Yeah. That's how I open up the work day. Makes
Smart
everybody
guy.
in the office really happy about being around me.
I once worked with a guy. The manager was thinking it would be a good idea to turn it over to the team to bring in something that inspires them. It's a good idea in theory, but this is a perfect example of where like theory and execution in practical terms vary differently, very greatly rather. So this guy brings in a video, and it's like taking forever to load up. It's on like a jump drive, and we're opening the file, won't open. Ends up being a video of said individual at the fucking gym bench pressing 365 pounds like 11 times.
That was it?
That was it.
Was there any words of wisdom?
Nope.
I like it. You know what? I respect it.
Good job, buddy.
Did it get everybody fired up too?
I feel incredibly motivated to never talk to you again. So it did motivate me, just I think in an adverse way. That he
perhaps that was his move, right? He just wanted to kind of work.
Maybe he
by
hated
himself.
me and didn't want me to talk to him, and he knew that would repel me. So if that was the case, you are a maniacal, evil genius, and God bless you, sir.
Yeah, he's slowly taking over the world, so it's happening. But actually, that leads to a good thing, Mike. Always curious about with you, what motivates you? I know it's not guys bench pressing 350 on a jump drive, but tell me what makes Mike Stearns tick.
Okay, so first of all, it's 365.
Okay, my apologies.
What motivates me? You have the. It's funny because there's like different like silos of things within life that you seek and that fulfill you and that motivate you. So, obviously to provide for my family, my wife, my daughter, my soon to come son in November. Money. I like money. I don't hate money, Nick.
Yeah.
Okay. I am a staunch capitalist. I like to make an impact for those around me, and that could be clients, that could be people within my network, my community. For sure, that makes me feel really good, very fulfilled. And then just being better every day. Trying to be as objective as possible through my lens to say, okay, for me, that's been the antidote to a lot of issues is, giving your best and trying to, I always look at it like a gas tank. You have empty and you have full, and like full is perfect. Empty is like as imperfect as you can be. And like, I just, if I can move the needle towards full a little bit every day, I'm happy. And if I can be honest with myself, right? And it doesn't always happen. There's days where it's like, yeah, that was a miss. So and then you find the balance of like holding yourself accountable versus beating the shit out of yourself, and that's a dance I don't know that I've mastered yet. I still step on my partner's toes, but trying to look through that lens and be like, okay, I've done what I can today, yesterday. I'm going to do what I can tomorrow to be better for my family, for myself, for my clients, for the employees, my team members, and those are, in a nutshell, that's my elevator pitch about what motivates me. How'd I do?
That was good. I give it like a 9.5 out of 10. That was really strong.
Well, damn. Okay.
It's
like
pretty high, man.
Like
Only thing I went over, if you did a couple bench presses right there, then 10. 10 out of 10.
There's always next time. Room for improvement.
That's why we learned. That's just what you said. It motivates you. You want to get better each day.
Mm-hmm.
We're getting you there, so.
I appreciate you.
Appreciate you too, man. So, yeah, just for the listeners and the viewers, I guess, too, because this is video as well as there. Mikey and I were talking the other day, and we're talking about just a lot of different posts online in all the Facebook groups, just talking about like SEO, pay-per-click, what do I do here, how do I get this, etc., and just recommendations. And Mike and I were on the phone, and I was just we're just kind of chatting about everything, and I just thought for a second, I'm like, what if we did like a reverse interview on your podcast? And what if we just asked the questions that a normal roofer would ask, who doesn't know a lot about marketing, doesn't know a lot about SEO, pay-per-click, social videos, chopping things up, etc. And let's get some wisdom from the master. And before I go off on my my holiday, we did this nice and early in the morning. Really excited for this one. Got my coffee, spilled some water this morning. So I'm ready to rock. So Mike, do you want to just go, you got double coffee? I got the single coffee.
And they're both gone. My heart's doing jumping jacks right now. So let's get it before my arrhythmia gets the best of me.
Just passes out mid-question. Just falls down. So let's just start off with like, what's the importance of marketing for a small to medium-sized business?
It's going to bring you more opportunities, right? Marketing, advertising, branding. All these things are a way to speak to your potential customers and help build yourself and your company and your team up as an authority on whatever the subject matter is. So in the context of a roofer, all things roofing, and that while that's generally speaking what you want to do. If you want to be successful, is you want the opportunity to grow. You don't have to embrace every opportunity to grow. Not every customer has to be a customer. But it's nice, even if you get to that point, and it's like, I can now pick and choose what opportunities I have. So those are the results of, properly marketing, advertising, and branding yourself.
That's awesome. And what's really interesting about that when I'm thinking about it from perspective of a company that has gotten to that point, like you were saying there, that you could just kind of pick the customers that you want to work with, something important to realize, like not every customer is your customer. There's people, like I used to have this line when we're roofing, and I've done it a couple times at Roofr too, where it's just like, hey man, as much as you're looking and you're evaluating us as a company to work with, we're evaluating you, and just there's not a fit here. And there's a lot of other companies out there that could be good and we could recommend some, but it's important to know, especially for just starting off, it's hard when you're just starting off because you want everybody to be your customer, but sometimes they're not worth it. Just not worth it.
Yeah, no doubt. And like you said early on, it's like, okay, our job is to make money and provide for our families and give our team opportunities and expand our team and service as many people as we can with our offerings, because we feel that we do it better than other people. So it's really challenging to say, no, we're not going to take your money because there's not a good fit here. And whether it's and if you're honest with yourself, most of us have had a customer that we took on where we look at it retrospectively, and it's the homeowner had 7 red flags that we just looked past because we wanted business, right? Usually the writing's on the wall.
Early too.
Yep, but and that's you got to heed these warnings, these indications, and really analyze okay, do these individuals, does this prospective homeowner fit into what we want from a customer? And if you do that, you can stymie a lot of the issues in advance that you could run into by taking said project. It's not a bad thing. It's not a bad thing that not every customer is your customer. In our world, we do aggressive marketing and advertising for contractors. So, simply by virtue of budget, it might not make sense as far as our appetite to grow a contractor. They might not have the same ambitions, and if that's the case, that's 100% okay. And we'll be forthright with them about that. But what we do is we try to create a lot of content around things that we've come across, issues that contractors have had, things that we believe that they would benefit from doing. And we try to put that out as free content. So even those that we can't help directly by virtue of fulfilling campaigns, we can help guide them through content to make good decisions that we've seen work for other people.
100%. And that's something that I love about your shorts. They're always just packed with good information, dad jokes, but really good info. Yeah, the dad jokes are important, but really good information. And that kind of stuff makes a big difference for people starting out. You just always see on Facebook people asking those questions, and for the most part, they're received well. There's some jerks out there just shitting on their questions. You're like, oh, come on, man, they're just learning. So, but that's a great point that you were bringing up there. That there's always these red flags. I think it might be good if we just kind of dig into that a little bit, because it happens on all sides. So if you're talking to a new homeowner that you're looking at, and you might see some red flags, but also if you're talking to a tech company, a marketing company, or something like there's red flags there. You just got to be able to identify them. What are some of the red flags to you when talking to a customer that realizes it's not yours?
Before we answer that, and we'll make sure we get back to that, I got a question for you. I want to hear from a roofer's perspective, the biggest red flag from a homeowner that would turn you off to say it's probably not a good fit?
Oh, there's a lot.
Because I have mine. If I were a roofer, what the number one thing would be? I'm interested if it's the same.
I had a lot. If somebody kept on, I used to hold. Look, we weren't my dad's not the cheapest, not the most expensive roofer out there, but we're at the upper end of middle, if you will. And if people just kept on going down on price and stuff like that, and that was always kind of a red flag where I'm like, look, I can give you a little bit, and then it ends. So it's really, what do you want for the value? So that's an easy one. But one of the ones that always bugged me was, I'm a workaholic. I'm a horrible, horrible workaholic. I'm leaving for Italy in a couple hours, and I'm doing a podcast right now. So I love to work. That being said, even if I was working and somebody consistently called me over and over again, or communication after hours in an obscene time frame, 8, 9 o'clock or something like that, I would always respond and I'd answer the phone almost passive aggressively. But that's always a red flag. There is no respect on my side to what I'm doing, what I could be doing, or anything like that. And the question that they ask is not important enough to deem a phone call. It's not something's leaking. There's not there's a fire. So I'm just this person is so needy and they're entitled. And the entitlement is what was okay, well, not my customer.
I'm curious if that's a subtle way of you telling me to fuck off, because I have a tendency to do that to you. Hey, come on the podcast at 7 a.m.
First of all, no.
I swear I'm not talking about you, Mike. No, I wouldn't do that on your show.
Never.
Mine, that's really good feedback, and I like that answer. Mine, if I were a roofer, would be, the biggest red flag would be, I need a labor-only price.
Oh, yeah. I can get the material real good price. How much?
I've already got
would
the
it be?
material.
Yeah.
Right.
Where'd you get that material from?
Or, and this will kind of dovetail into my answer to the question. It's like, okay, well, my brother's a roofer, so, what I need an estimate, so.
My line always for that was, cool. So that's really good. Like whether you have your own material or something like that, I go, there are probably some people out there that could kind of fit that need there. Just before we leave on the phone here, and they're like, we're leaving on the phone? I was like, yeah, we're going to hang up. But before we do that, just want to let you know that your home is your biggest investment. Your roof is protecting that investment. And by the time that you see a leak inside your house and you identify it, it's already damaged the shingles, the plywood, the insulation, lowered your R value, and now your drywall, hopefully just your ceiling, and it didn't get into the walls and started getting into that stuff. So what I would love you to do is go to that person, hopefully that they're going to be, just do your background check, but keep my number because around 6 months to a year you might need it. I'm always here to help out regardless, so good luck. That was my always thing, was just kind of be telling them, like, this is your biggest investment, and there's no such thing as a quick fix with roofing. Like if it's leaking, it's damaged a lot of stuff to get to your visibility.
Yep.
So.
I like that.
All right.
So my biggest, so I guess red flags. I guess how we're defining red flags. So some things that I look for when considering, like, is a potential client going to be a good fit with a site?
Mm-hmm.
What's their revenue? Because again, it's just simply a math equation and what percentage of your top line revenue you're going to invest into marketing and advertising, and that may not be in alignment. If you're just starting, you're year one, you guys at $500,000. Your year one, $500,000 is not a bad thing, but it doesn't necessarily, if I'm buying my first home, I may have an appetite for a forever home, but I probably can't afford my forever home right out the gate. And maybe I can. If you can, fantastic. But in most instances, I'm going to buy, like me personally, I bought my first house. It was a 4-unit. We invested in it. I lived in it while we renovated it. That was, 5 years ago. It wasn't my forever home, but it worked, and it was great for what I wanted out of it, and it was fantastic. So another thing that I look for is Google reviews. How many reviews have you driven to your Google business profile, right? Because there's a correlation, and I think a pretty strong one, between how seriously you take people speaking highly of your business for the work that you're doing, and how seriously you're going to take your marketing and advertising. If you're of the mindset that, I'm paying a send, so I don't want to be fucking bothered, you're not for us, right? Yeah. There needs to be engagement, there needs to be communication, and it needs to be often, if possible, like at least once a month, right? And it's not always something where it's like, okay, we have to sit down for 2 hours and discuss every facet of your campaign, but the more in the know we are about changes that are happening within your company, the better we can position you to your target market. Mm-hmm. So I think those are a couple things that we really look for sure.
I think it's important for people to kind of hear that too, what someone like you, a company that's as well respected and good at what you guys do as Ascend, is looking for in a customer. Because I could open up this next question with, Mike, do you need 10 to 15 more leads? Like, can you handle 10 to 15 more leads? Because that's all we see every day on Facebook. And it's a joke. It gets to a joke because it's just the same line every single time. And I do not claim to be a roofer anymore. I don't have a roofing company in my profile or anything like that. Yet, 3-4 times a week, I get people reaching out to me on Facebook being like, hey, can you handle 15 more leads? It's like, you read my bio at all, or just like anything? You could just search the name on my t-shirt in the photo.
Nope, because I get them too.
Yeah, it's crazy. So with all those different marketing companies out there, and just ones popping up seemingly daily, like from either a roofer who thinks that they could do marketing, or a homeowner or whatever, or some guy who, I almost said Bay Street because I'm Canadian, some guy who left Wall Street. That's our, did you know we have a Wall Street? It's called Bay Street?
No, yeah, I just learned that now, so appreciate it.
That's really fun. Yeah. So, okay, way too Torontonian every once in a while. But like, what are ways that a roofer who's looking to get into marketing, what are some red flags that they can see in a marketing company when they're talking to maybe not the 15 leads person, but someone else that might be out there.
There's a lot of them. One thing I'll say is I've seen, frequently over the last 5 years, folks saying, I used to be a contractor, so I get it. Like, these are the things. Just because somebody's a roofer doesn't necessarily, and they understand roofing, doesn't make them a good marketer. And vice versa. The same way, like, if I did marketing for roofing companies and I showed up to sell you a fucking roof or install a roof, because I did marketing for a roofing company doesn't mean I can install your roof. All right?
Oh.
So, like, if you're leading with that just for the basis of, hey, I'm going to create a rapport by the fact that, I'm like you, it's not an indicator of their proficiency and their ability to market your company. So, red flags. I think there's questions to ask. I made a YouTube video, 18 questions to ask when hiring a marketing company. And there's a lot of them. There's, do I own my website domain? Do I own my website? Like, that's super, super important. You want to make sure that assets that you have, you own. And if you don't, like, it's not necessarily the end of the world. There's situations where it can make sense, but, like, you need to know that before you decide to engage a marketing company, not 3 years later after you've invested a ton of money into your website and your domain. Because all that, like, if you're doing SEO is going to be on your website, off your website, building backlinks, building content, but that all rolls up that authority into your website domain. So www.abcroofingcompany.com. So if somebody then, has you held hostage, when you're trying to leave, and they're leveraging the fact that you're going to lose everything that you put into it, that's a really shitty situation that could be really easily avoided if you just know the right question to ask. And the question is, do I own my website? Get it in writing, for sure. Same thing with your Google Ads.
Good tip for, in general, everyone out there, good tip, anytime you're wishy-washy, just get it in writing. Text, email, something, just get it in writing just so that you got backing.
Yep. Another a glaring red flag. I mean, it's bright red, it's waving high and proud, is like guaranteeing results for SEO. Everybody feels better with guarantees. It's fine. I just did a podcast at 5:30 a.m. Eastern time with none other than Matt Smith. And one thing that we talked about is, SEO. It's not like everything else where it's an easy math equation. Like, the results aren't as predictable as some other things and as we'd like them to be. We can do the same thing for 10 different people in 10 different markets, and based on the saturation, based on what domain authority and authority in general from an online perspective other people have within that market, things react differently. So it's not as if, hey, there's a recipe. Okay, we're going to do a quarter cup of flour, a teaspoon of vanilla extract, and we're going to add in these chocolate chips, and voila, we got these amazing fucking cookies that taste the same every time. It's not that type of party. With that being said, there are things that you can do, even though SEO takes a long time. There are things you can do to make sure that things are actually happening and they're not just using the it takes time thing to completely take advantage of you. So, red flag, if someone's guaranteeing you first page position, fucking run. Because they can't guarantee it, because they don't understand what Google knows, because nobody does. The way that we position is like, we'll do everything we have done for all of our clients that have been wildly successful. Here are their results, right? We'll show you some charts, we'll show you some calls, because we isolate what calls are coming for organic. We can then show you, like, that's the expectation. If you ask me what the expectation is when you come to purchase SEO, I'm like, I don't fucking know. The expectation is we're going to deliver the same way we have for all of our other customers by doing A, B, C, D, E, F, G, H, I, J, K, L, M, N, O, P. Q-R-S, T, U, V, D.
Bring it home. Said.
Yeah, so that's those are some red flags that come to mind. If you're considering working with an agency, and I would ask them to talk to people that they work with. Most companies are gonna position themselves as industry experts, and we know roofing, and we'll crush it for you, just like we do all of our other customers. I would do it on a phone call, not like a DM or text message, because what I want to do is, like, when I ask somebody a question, I want to see what their initial intuitive response is. So if I ask you, Nick, all right, y'all kill it with measurements and proposals and shit, give me 5 people that I can talk to. You could rattle off 5 people. I'm sure of it.
Yeah.
If somebody starts stumbling around, stuttering, there's a really good chance if it's that hard for them to name 3-5 different people, there's a higher likelihood that they're full of shit. Doesn't necessarily mean they are, but I think that would be a good vetting question and gauge their response.
What I love about what you do on Facebook is when some awesome roofer like this guy suggests Mike for marketing and SEO and stuff like that online, you come in hot. You come in with a nice thank you and stuff, but then you come in like, hey, here, and you tag like 7 different people that you've done. And they're not like tiny roofers. These are roofers that are super active and super helpful across all of social media, always out there helping and networking and growing. It's people that names are out there. So like, exactly to your point, like why be slow play? Why slow play that? Just show your work, be proud, talk about it. And there's people out there that will talk about it all the time. When people ask about measurements, I used to, thankfully we're in a different position now, but like I used to just tag our top users and say like, what do you guys think? Now I just kind of like, by the time I go into that message, there's enough people in there talking about it, which is nice, but it definitely makes a huge difference there in finding out what they've been doing, who they've been working with. And I love just digging online in finding on social, because like everybody has some bad stories, but finding out about those bad stories is good, because I always like looking at it from like, mistakes can happen, but it's how do you kind of go and react to that mistake? How do you make things better? Like, what were your next steps from there? Because if it's just like a fuck you, like go away, like here's your money back or whatever, if it's like, hey, yeah, look, this happened, not a problem, this is how we're going to go about fixing it, I think is super important. And I see that a lot with people online now too, is being like, you know what, I had a problem with them and they came back and their solution was better than what I could have expected, and 5 stars, whatever.
Yeah, it's incredible how those situations are handled are important. And like in that video, 18 questions asked when hiring a marketing company, that's one of them. Like, give us an example of something that didn't work out, like a time where you've had a client that didn't work out. Like, see if they're going to be honest with you. Nobody's fucking perfect. We're not perfect. The next company's not perfect. Now I feel like we're the best. On the record, I feel like we're the best, and we carry out our business every day as if we're the best. It doesn't mean that there aren't other good marketing companies. There's a few of them that I really, really like and I enjoy, but we set out every day to be the absolute best. And but fucking mistakes are made.
Yeah.
Like, that's going to happen. And it's funny because when COVID hit in the U.S. and when restaurants open back up, you'll see how I tie this together. And we went out to restaurants for the first time, and I noticed that there was a shift in the customer experience. So like, we're going to a restaurant, we're paying X amount of dollars for whatever food and what is the value of this? The value is, hey, 1, we're out of the house after being locked down in New York. 2 is like, we have a need. We have a need that needs to be met, which is food to satiate our appetite. And I don't want to prep, I don't want to cook, and I don't want to clean up. Therefore, I'm going to pay you to do all those things for me. Right? That's the value that a restaurant brings. And I noticed that like wait staff, when if they would fuck up like an order, I remember explicitly, like, I take my steak medium rare, like any self-respecting steak eater. I don't want it well done. Shots fired. Because I love flavor.
Was that a shot at me?
I love flavor. Okay. All right. I love flavor. So medium rare,
right.
If not rare plus.
I'm a rare, by the way. Just okay. I feel like that was a direct attack.
No, not at all. I would never do that.
Because I'm Italian, and you think I'm gonna do well done steak?
Well done steak and fucking with ketchup on it. So the steak was well done, and I addressed it, and I was very kind of like, it's a bit overcooked. Would you mind throwing another steak on? And the way that this particular individual made me feel, as if, like, how dare I? When I'm buying a $50 steak and I'm waited for 35 minutes right now and I'm starving as is, like, how dare I ask for them to bring me another steak? And it's like, it's the only fucking reason I'm here is because you guys can do something probably better than I can do it, and without all the hassle. And that's why I'm willing to pay a 3x premium for the steak. So how people respond, like that's a very negative experience, because even though they ended up bringing out another steak, I'm like, the way that the wait staff made me feel, like I don't feel encouraged to come back here. Now, I didn't go roast them on Yelp and TripAdvisor and Google, but it was a shitty experience, and I probably won't go back. And like, there's a lot, like you said, like that's where like character and integrity has an opportunity to shine, bleed through, or be shown not to be present, is in those trying situations. When everything's great, it's easy to have integrity, right? And to do the right thing. That fucking When shit hits the fan, that's when you start to see people's real colors. True colors.
100%.
Yeah.
I always kind of bring it back, and you could bring it into the roofing world too. Like, are you dealing with someone who's a results-based business or a process-based business? Because there's two very different things. And this offends people at times, but anybody could be a results-based business. If times are good, things are flowing and stuff like that, then yeah, sure, you're just kind of signing checks and putting on roofs or whatever. So if you're in a bad storm market, that there's been storms consistently there, and you slowly build a name there, and you just have that there, that's great. But if you're only based on results, and something happens, something changes, that status quo moves, you got to be able to withstand that. And I think nothing's more true in the service industry. So whether it's marketing, restaurants, whatever the case is, you need to understand that there's a process in place. And if shit hits the fan, how am I, your marketing agency, going to back you up? And how am I going to pivot to make sure that, hey, Google changed their pay-per-click stuff. I don't know if that happens, but it sounded like what a marketer would say. But
now you're shooting shots at me. God damn it.
There we are. They changed the pay-per-click stuff, and I have to adapt. And if I can't adapt on the fly, if I just tell them like, well, shit, man, like it's going to be low this month, that's not the roofer's fault. You need to be taken care of by that marketer, being like, hey, it's changed the status quo. I got an option here, and we're going to pivot and do this here. So that's a huge difference there from kind of like an entitlement stuff too. And I find that if I'm ever dealing with a larger company as well, even on my side from the tech side, I deal with like a larger company, and they just know that their shit doesn't stink. And then I dealt with a company that's in the same space, but they're a little bit newer, and they're out there just like, look, this is what we can do for you, and this is what we're going to do. And like, that's what you want. You want somebody who's a partner, not someone you're paying. You want someone to be invested in your success as well, and that's huge.
Yeah, and that's coming with the value. You're a great host. You know, one of the flexes, like the posturing shit, like that's oftentimes a pet peeve of mine. So, you know, if somebody, you know, if you want to talk to somebody, like if I want to talk to somebody at Roofr, and I'm a roofing contractor because I've seen 10 people endorse Roofr, and it's like, yeah, I want to do business, just go ahead and reach out to Roofr. Don't comment, hey, DM me, right? Because now we're posturing, right? You want the upper hand to know that Roofr reached out to you. It's like, let's fucking stop, okay? If you want to deal with Roofr, message Roofr. Especially if there's a person on that thread from Roofr, or 3 people from Roofr. Go ahead and shoot him a DM.
Yeah.
We don't got a big we don't got a big league people in 2023.
I was at my first trade show that we've done in Toronto, where I'm from. I was so excited, just really excited to we built this company in Toronto, and it's kind of grown it. Now we're at a spot where I'm like, oh my God, we're gonna be at this trade show. There's not gonna be a lot of tech people out there. It's just gonna be us with our people. And like, for me personally, who grew up roofing in Toronto, everybody I knew was there. Like the suppliers I used to work with, my dad and my mom are coming by. It was like a really cool experience. So I'm having a great time at this show, a great time, and just talking with these like new people, so existing friends, and all that stuff, and having a really good conversation with each and every one. Near the very end, Toronto is a very there's a lot of like ego here, but like a lot of like self-loathing as well. Like people are like, we're aware that we're Canadian, we're aware that we're Toronto and not New York, but a lot of people want to pretend that it's New York. And so they have that big attitude and stuff. And like, hey, some BDE, that's good. Every once in a while, just go out there and let your freak flag fly. That's good. That's
guess in the comments.
It's exactly. Don't DM me. But then when at the end, I remember this guy come by. We're literally packing up the booth, and this guy comes by and he starts talking. I was like, "Hey, buddy, what's going on?" He's like, "What do you guys do?" And I kind of give him the pitch and stuff. And he goes, "Yeah, I think I'd be interested." I was like, right off the bat, the think you'd be interested part. It's like either yes or no. I don't have feelings about if you're not interested, but I think I'd be interested. I was like, cool. Like, why would you think you're interested? He's like, why don't you come down to my office and you can do a presentation in front of me and the team. I was like, yeah, well, here's my card. Like, I'd be happy to book a Zoom meeting with you right now. He goes, nah. You come to the office or we don't do business. I was like, okay. Like, in my head right away, I was like, no. I'm just not coming to your office. I'm not driving to your office, which was, by the way, an hour and a half. I asked. It was an hour and a half away. It was not the fact that I didn't want to drive there. It was the way that he presented himself. Right. And then at the end, by the way, just for the last red flag, hey, man, do you want some merch? I got a water bottle here, a T-shirt similar to this. Do you want that? He goes, nah, nothing touches his body except Hugo Boss. And I was like, oh, douche, okay. Just turned around. I was like, I'm not working with you because you've hit every red flag that I have as for a consumer.
Yeah, that's tough. I can see why.
It's weird.
That would be off-putting.
You want to have that humility from everybody, and you want to know that, like, hey, if a mistake is made, then we both can own up to it and work towards it. I've made mistakes. I've been like, here's exactly what happened. Here's what I'm doing to fix it, and here's what I'm doing to avoid it ever happening again. These are my 3 steps here. So I'm going to make sure that you're made whole as well as everything else, and I'm also going to make sure that this is not going to happen. Whether it's in roofing, whether it's in tech, whether it's in life, that's good 3 things to kind of work on. But if you're going to come in with bravado and energy like your shit doesn't stink, and that you've never made a mistake and stuff like that, you're going to push people away, and more importantly, you're going to attract the wrong people. You're going to attract the wrong customers, the wrong partners, the wrong friends. It's not a good way to go. And I've learned from, a lot of mistakes that those are not the people that you want to attract to. So
what Nick's saying, it's like trying to find your future soulmate at an after party at 3 a.m. Just don't do it.
No, unless that's your person. Like that's what you do.
But if we're
that's
playing
your
odds,
vibe.
Yeah, we're playing the odds.
It's gonna be difficult.
Yeah. I think in general, a rule of thumb is like if it sounds too good to be true, it probably is. So like, for instance, if you tell a marketing company you want to do an extra $2 million in revenue, and they're like, yeah, we can get you there. So let me show you this package. It's only $599 a month. Think about what you would do for $599 a month. I think that's a good barometer. How much work would you put into something for $599 a month? And then look at it strictly from what you're investing and what your ROI would be. Okay, so if I spend $7,200 or $69.88 or whatever it is, $71.88, my math sucks. Anyhow, if I spend about $7,200 and I can make $1 million top line, I mean, what would that be at a 10% net? That's $100,000 over a 12-month period. That's 12 to 1. What's the math on that?
I'm the last person to ask math.
Yeah, so you're making essentially, like 15x over 1 year. Somebody help me. What 7 divided by 100, 1, 3, 34, 14x, right? And if you could 14x,
I was just about to say that.
If you could 14x your investment year over year, people would fucking do that all the time. It's just simply not that simple. It doesn't make sense. So that should be something that would concern you. It's like, okay, for $600 I can make $1 million. I can net 100,000. Like that for me puts my guard up, and now I'm gonna dig a little bit harder into this potential partner, right?
It's the Bernie Madoff situation, man. Like like you're just looking at that return, and you're like, that just nobody else could promise anything close.
Right.
And then you're just gotta okay, well, something's up here.
What's the acceptable rate of return? as far as like what's deemed good on an average year over year, like 7 to 10% on investments, like depending on where you're
something around there.
Money. I mean, I'm not a financial advisor, but like I hear those numbers thrown around, so I'm assuming there's some credence lent to that. I mean, we could ask ChatGPT.
We could, but I also think that Ascend Digital Financial Institution would be really good, like kind of second part of this company.
So I'm gonna take my Series 7 after this podcast.
Yeah.
We're gonna get fixed into to get licensed and we do some financial shit.
Because that rocket ship can go to the moon in the stocks as well as your business. So,
dude, you're just pouring on the value as the host, and I appreciate.
I have a lot of ideas, Mike. I have a lot of ideas. Not everybody listens to me, but a lot of ideas out there.
Well, you're doing better than me because no one listens to me. Anywho.
Oh wow, that's good. Well, we're gonna be rich with our Ascend. By the way, I get a percentage because I came up with that idea. So I want like 10% of the digital stock.
So
company.
what you're saying is essentially, I got to give you 10%.
Well, yeah, as a friend and as the brains behind this all, I think 10% is fair.
I'm gonna get my people with your people, and we're gonna dig into this a little bit.
Do you have my people's number? I don't know if we.
Listen, just ping me.
Oh, okay. Good. Gotcha.
Just ping me.
Let me see what the North Star is over here.
Yeah.
And, go check that out. I want to jump back to something at the very beginning that you talked about.
Okay.
In the conversation when we're talking about like the importance of hiring an agency and stuff like that, you touched on several times building a brand. And I want to go into like how do you build the proper brand and how do you protect that brand overall?
Ooh. Yeah. Like that shit. So
I wrote it down at the beginning once you said it, and then I was like, oh, we just had good kind of tying on conversation, so I'm bringing it back now.
It's interesting. Like, there's so many things that you can do to build a brand, and then there's so many things that you can do to build, like, keep that brand building, and then also to sabotage that brand, right? So a lot of people when they think brand, like, what's the name of the company, what's the logo? Like, those are important because that kind of creates like the identity. That's like the infantrymen out at war, right? That's the front line. That's what people are first going to see. And some folks will choose their last name, or they'll choose just a very ambiguous, like an endearing word that is oftentimes overused, and there's 3 of them in every market. And like that's, if you look at it objectively, it's not an opportunity to build a strong brand if a lot of people already have this brand name, and it's not like discernible from other folks. And by the way, like if some bigger companies have a similar name, it's going to be hard to rank for your brand in keyword search on the SEO side. So you're making it hard on yourself. But what, I worked with Benny Baccarat. Cue him, put it in, Jen. Benny Baccarat, a.k.a. Benny Tiger, a.k.a. Ben Morrow. He's great at branding. He does an amazing job. So, you have Roof Tiger, right? There's a story behind that. His dad, when he was young, called him Tiger. So when he opened a roof company, Roof Tiger made a lot of sense to him because of that story. Now, he can have that conversation with people in his market. So what does Ben then do? He goes and wraps his truck in tiger print. He opens up Solar Panther. He has a solar wrap, a panther with panther spots on his truck and on his website for Solar Panther. I mean, his brand, and now he creates merchandise and gives it to people in the community. Now people are rocking Roof Tiger shit when they walk around Peoria, Illinois, right? And it's identifiable.
Continues to grow.
Yeah. And now, down to the damn sneakers. Show them the sneakers, Jen. Nike Prestos, and they got tiger stripes on them, right? So everything is on brand, right? Ascend, rocket ship, to the moon. We have our launch SEO program, which is our base level, our to the moon, and then our cosmic, right? The Mission Control podcast, right? We want to be the folks that are guiding your journey to the moon, right? That's why Mission Control makes sense, because that's what Mission Control does, right? So it's all on brand, right? It's not an accident. So I think being intentional as far as what you want to name your company, how you're going to represent it with a logo, have a story behind it. Like, get excited about it and be excited to tell people about it and what it means, because the more that it's relatable to people, the better off that you're going to be, the more memorable it becomes, right? And that's what we want to do when it comes to building a brand, is like, we want to be memorable. The biggest
but also, I want to jump in too, is when you're talking about being like specific and stuff, and you hit on a pet peeve of mine, is like, everybody out there has the same name. when you're first starting out and stuff, you're excited. You're just best roofing company, or like best choice, or first choice, or I'm just naming ones in my area, right? Like it's pervasive across North America. So be specific, and when you're trying to be unique and change the game like Ben did in his market and create something that really get specific down to like even the logo and stuff. Ben, for example, chose a tiger that looks different than all the other tigers that you would see online. If you search cartoon tiger on Google and hit images, you're not going to get one that looks at him. He has one that's less pronounced, less angry, less everything. So like the actual meaning behind it kind of goes towards and makes you feel a little bit more safe, a little bit more comforting, a little bit more that this company's not out to take my money. Like you can get so subconscious with it, and so it just opens up the door for so much more there. So don't rush the branding. It's just it's not worth it. But continue with that. I just wanted to dive in on give Benny a shout out there.
And that's a really good point, and I appreciate that. I do. Here's the thing: you could have AAA roofing that's been around for 30 years, and they named it that because back when phone books were more relevant, that gave them first position was to be AAA roofing, and they got a lot of jobs because of it. And we could market and advertise that company, and they could do it. Like it's not as if like you could have, objectively poor branding, and you can advertise through that as far as generating opportunities. But it's like, okay, if you're going to run a race, do you want to run a race at a steep incline, or do you want to run across a flat terrain? Like I want to run it, or downhill, right? So if you're branding and you're well branded, and people know you and what they identify with your company, what traits, what qualities, what workmanship, what experience they identify with your company when they hear your name, when it's time for them to choose a roofing contractor, guess who they're going to choose? Guess whose life just got a lot easier? So you're running almost downhill at that point, versus if you don't have a strong brand, you don't have good branding, and the association people are making with your company as a result of that is not as strong. Well, now you're running uphill. How do you want to run? I want to run downhill if possible. It's a lot easier. Maybe even flat, because downhill can be tough, right? Because you're stabilizing, and as I get older, my knees kind of hurt. So maybe it's not downhill. Maybe it's not a steep downhill. I'll tell you what I don't want. I don't always have the answer what I want, but or what's right, but I know what's not right. And in this instance, running uphill is not right. It's not what you want as an owner. So.
And you have the passion behind it, and that's all that matters.
Yeah.
So that's it. Yeah. What with though, like looking at that building a brand thing and trying to making sure that you're not going to be going uphill, what are some easy choices that you can start to look at before you open up a company and start building a brand? What are some things that or should be the first things you look at?
I'm going to defer to branding experts on this one, because that's not my forte.
Where's Benny? Get him in here.
God damn it, Benny. It's 7:04 Central Standard. You better get on in here now. Yeah. I think a story, whatever you're going to do, be emphatic about it. It's got to be memorable. Pay attention to detail, right? So Benny, for instance, he's got a font that's associated with ferocious roofing or one of the phrases. It's in, I think it's called a Street Fighter font, where it's I don't give a shit if you put Ascend Digital or I can't stand it here. Whatever you chose to put in this font, if you were in Peoria, Illinois, subconsciously you're going to think of Roof Tiger, because they brand that font in association with their logo and with their brand so well and so frequently that it's just going to trigger, right? So pay attention to details when you're talking about doing branding activities. Think about how people are going to perceive you when they land wherever it is you're sending them, whether that's a Facebook page, whether that's your Instagram content, TikTok, website. Right? Think about how you would feel if you were making a decision to do business with a company based on what your experience was. Do you want to... impressions are real, first impressions especially, and if your first impression is a shitty one, they're less likely to choose you, right? So if you have strong branding in place and you have an experience built out to foster that individual who is in need into becoming a customer, and feel confident about it from the inception of that interaction, you're much more likely to get them to the point where they become a customer.
Yeah, being really kind of purposeful with those moves are huge. I always use that the font thing is perfect. Like getting to that point and actually thinking about that before you send it out is great, because one of the best examples, they actually, SNL I think did a short on it, is when I look at the font or see it anywhere, the font, it's called Papyrus, I only think of one thing, and it's Avatar. Because the word Avatar in all those movies are written in the font Papyrus. If you guys want a fun little short video to watch, Ryan Gosling does a short video on like the fact that Papyrus is now associated with Avatar, and it makes everything there. But if you kind of look at it from that perspective, look at something that my parents, for a great example, is called Guaranteed Roofing, and their logo is like a stamp of guarantee, and his trucks are bright yellow. He bought all of his Q vans. He bought from Penske used trucks and wrapped them. So when you see the yellow trucks coming around, then there you are. His dump truck that he bought for all the bins, or he got it wrapped in yellow. Like it's yellow and green branding and stuff like that. And look, my parents aren't branding experts. They just knew what stood out. And in a small community, you want to be that neighborhood roofer. You want to be that 5 mile famous so that people continuously recommend you, because then you can grow that brand, that positivity and everything else. So I think that makes a huge point, is like looking into the little things that you can do for your company when selecting a brand and building it there. But yeah, that's good.
Smart. They did a great job. That's very smart. And something to keep in mind with your branding and like your logo, your fonts, your color palette. Like, you know, no roofer wants to hear about a fucking color palette, but you have codes associated with each one of your colors. So if you're doing, whether it's a door hanger, whether it's a billboard, a new website, like get your color palette over to the people so you make sure that your branding, you want it to be clear, concise, and consistent, right? If you do those three things, you have a better opportunity of building that strong. You heard it here first. Let me ask you a question, Nick.
Let's go for it.
How do you define a return on investment?
You know what? That's a great question. I was talking about that with my team and some other people on, because event season just passed and stuff like that. And ROI typically is like, hey, did we make more than like dollars and cents than what we spent? Like, did we put in some money expecting to get more and got that good return on investment? But in a lot of situations, especially when you're looking at trade shows, you're not going to break even. You're going to lose money on those. But is your ROI kind of brought into your brand recognition now? Is to your positioning in the company, in the industry, your positioning versus your competitors? So where does that kind of open up, and the ability to possibly speak at these shows? So long answer is, I define ROI on something that will, within 6 months or a year, bring me an investment, like a return on my investment, literally. So whether it is a brand recognition, whether it is positioning in the industry, whether it is a direct sale, or just a referral, or my favorite thing is, yeah, I saw you guys a couple times. I walked by, I didn't really have a chance to talk to you, but I recognize the name now. That's a return on investment for me. Now, I'm going to kind of do what Mike did there and say, I'm no branding expert, and I'm no financial analyst or investment person here, but I would really put, like, if we have that brand recognition and that callback ability, so where someone can see Roofr or Ascend and be like, I know who you are, that's an ROI there.
So as far as ROI and a return on investment, I was running the other day and I was thinking about this, as I was also thinking that I might fall over and die because it was like 90 degrees. How frequently we only look to things that are quantifiable as far as what a return is, right? In the context of, like, let's say Google Ads, like that makes a lot of sense. What is our input into our ad campaign? What was the output as far as revenue that came as a result, direct result of those ads? But then you have things like branding. And, you know, if you're doing things that are branding activities, you're sponsoring a school, or, you know, you're pushing out some mailers, or you're doing a billboard or a TV or Facebook ads for branding, like, that's not, the expectation shouldn't be, hey, I can put this into my Excel sheet and I can deduce exactly how much money I made off of returns. Like if you're looking for that, you're not looking for branding, you're looking for acquisition-based advertising. But then there's other returns too, like, perspective. If I invest 15 minutes into a conversation with somebody and they open up my eyes to something that I didn't realize before, like that's return, and that's significant return. I'm not making any money off that. Like maybe money comes as a result of a shift in my perspective, but that's not a quantifiable ROI, so to speak. But there's a lot of value in that. So I think it would be beneficial for folks on a more regular basis to kind of analyze what their expectations are of certain things. And I'm not saying this just in relation to marketing, advertising, branding, just in general, right? Like, what value am I getting out of the things that I'm doing? And then make self-assessments, take inventory of like things that you can do more of, things that you can do less of. And I think that those things, if you are honest with yourself and you make some changes, there's opportunity to become more efficient, to become more productive, to become more happy, all these different things. So that's my take.
Yeah, it makes a huge difference. I'll bring up a couple of people. So like my parents have advertising in all the local areas, in our hockey rinks and soccer teams, etc., and just it's brand recognition, and we know that we're not going to get jobs from that right off the bat, but then the more people see it, the more people refer us on Facebook, they know my dad and all that. But one of the best ways I've seen this happen is two. I'm going to name two people. One is, and I want to do what you just did there and say, I'm going to point up to this guy and just say, put in the picture of him right here, Corey Combs, your good friend. There it is. Drop it in. Your good friend Corey Combs does some amazing stuff. Like he does a lot on social and just kind of without any hope that that's going to bring him more business. He's doing it to help the industry, and he brings out suggestions and stuff. He also does what I found out recently that he does, and this is huge because this is not only for local businesses around him, but also that word is going to spread, and the ROI that he's going to get from that is, again, not quantifiable, but it's huge. He does I think it's a weekly or a monthly breakfast with small businesses in the area. And I know it's not just roofing, it's like painting, it's everything else, and he creates that community where small businesses could help other small businesses. You know that you've been going through the same shit, you've been going through the trenches with each other. You can help each other out by just kind of providing that, and the fact that he organizes that is something that you can't put a quantifiable metric on what that does for him, what it does for his brand, what it does for his revenue, but you can put a metric on it that what that does for the community that he is building around it. And you know what happens from that? If you want to try to get down the road and look at quantifiable, like that painter is going to refer Corey. That siding guy is going to refer Corey. Corey's also going to refer them, and so they're going to win. But that's a great way of doing it. The other great way is I see Ty Backer from TC Backer there. He does really big community things. He has a turkey roast every Thanksgiving where like the news agencies come down and everything. And his brand is known in that community as like the local person who's here to help out. So those little things can make a huge difference on ROI, and it's a little bit of a longer term play, but being involved in your community, being that neighborhood roofer, like I hear a lot of people saying 5 Mile famous and stuff, but that neighborhood roofer is where you can get the biggest ROI. And if you start locally and then grow out, then that's great, but you need to start locally and be that neighborhood roofer to start expanding out there. I see way too often. I've been doing this 6 years with Roofr. We started out as a marketplace. We had the instant quote 6 years ago where we drove traffic to, we partnered with roofers, and we got them leads, and we would call and qualify and sell for them. And so many times I would be talking to people that were in Florida or in California, and shit was going well. Like we were selling a lot for them. It was going well. The instant quotes work, and they're like, oh, this is great. I'm going to open up 1 or 2 more locations. I'm in Jacksonville. I'm going to open up Gainesville and Tampa now. And I was like, have you been in those markets? And he's just like, oh, no, but I get some leads out there. I was like, yeah, but do you know the market, like the landscape, like who the competitors are? Like there's a lot of saturated companies there. I know companies there that are going to eat eat your breakfast, your lunch, your dinner. And they're like, no, it's all good. So they make that jump without actually becoming that neighborhood roofer in his first community. They were not solidified in that. They just saw the shiny object and chased it down the road. And I see so many of those companies crumble. They either collapse back down to one or no locations, because going back to branding takes one bad review to ruin that brand. You could be building it for years, and if you grow too fast, if you do stupid stuff, you can crush your actual business with one bad review.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. And yeah, both those guys do a really good job, and I think that there's something to be learned from that. And I think like the lesson is like lean in with good intentions and lead with those good intentions. And if you do that, because at the end of the day, I own a company. Yes, I love money. Yes, my family motivates me. My ability to provide them is fucking great, and I like to do fun shit. But like at the end of the day, again, I need to be able to look at myself in the mirror and know that like I've done everything I can to make the biggest impact in my life, those around me, you know, and people in general, right? Like that's the stuff that makes us feel good, and that fulfillment is way more important than money. I learned this at a very young age. I started making good money when I was younger. That landed me when I was 19 with a drug addiction. And a terrible lifestyle, and one that taught me a lot, but when I was going through it, it was fucking awful. You know, so like the fulfillment aspect of you feeling good about the things that you're doing is really important. Like if you're doing things that make you feel good and that positively impact other people, the rest of the shit's gonna follow. And the roadmap as far as like what that looks like looks different for everybody. There's a million different routes on that map, but I promise you, if you consistently do good things for people and lead with good intentions, that you'll be fine. Promise.
Yeah.
You heard it here. That's the only promise I'm going to make today.
It's a good promise. I like that. But it's I always hate the adage like nice guys finish last. Nice guys finish last if you're expecting things to come to you because you're being nice. If you go what you talked about there, Mike, saying that like good intentions go far there. I don't know exactly. That was a really bad way of paraphrasing what you said, but the point remains. You
did a great job.
Thank you. Yes. But yeah, if you expect things to go like that, I'm being nice for the sake of getting something back in return. That's when nice guys finish last, because you're not actually being nice. You actually have to do it from where you're not expecting anything in return, and that's where you can start to get some value back in there.
Just hold the door for people.
Yeah, it's a simple
you know
thing.
what? And even if there's that guy that's having a shitty day, and this is my pet peeve, like you go out of your way and you hold the door extra long. You know, there's always that awkward, like, should I hold the door for this person because they're 7 strides away? Like, what's the tipping point where it's no longer acceptable to sit there and hold the door? Is it 4 strides, 8 strides, 12 strides? But when you go that extra mile to hold it, you know, a little bit longer than you think you would have typically, and like they don't say thank you, they just walk through. There's that sense of entitlement. That shit boils my blood. But guess what? Let that shit go and hold the door for the next fucking person the next time someone needs a door held. It's fine. Don't let that influence your actions. Keep leaning in. I've got a lot to learn. I'm telling you right now. I'm sitting here on my pedestal, on my soapbox, talking about, you know, hold the door. And these are things that I revisit all the time to try to be the best person that I can be. And I've got a ways to go.
Goldfish mentality in acts of like affirmation and things like that. Goldfish mentality is huge, because shit doesn't always work out, and if you dwell on it, it's just gonna make it worse and worse and worse. So that guy doesn't say thank you after you held the door open for him. Fuck him. On the next
Say
one.
You're welcome. Make him feel comfortable.
Exactly. Yeah, exactly. Let's get passive aggressive with it.
Just know I know. God damn it.
Yeah.
I may have done that before. Maybe not. I can't call it.
I definitely have. I'm definitely not innocent on that.
Oh, you're welcome, sir.
You are so welcome. Okay, I got a couple other questions for marketing aspect of it. I wrote down some stuff, but I'm going to start with one, and that will actually kind of tie into everything else. But when a company first starts out, small to medium-sized business, so for the stats out there, approximately 85% of our industry in roofing is small to medium-sized businesses.
Okay.
And every year, things are growing and growing, and people are starting new businesses. Now, the crazy stat is not that. The crazy stat is, and I'm going to throw a percentage out that's not exactly right, but it's in the right vein. Around 85 to 90% of them fail within the first 2 years. And the reason is people allocate money in the wrong direction. They're not good with like their actual recording and stuff like that. But a lot of it comes down to not knowing how to properly run a business and grow it sustainably.
Okay.
So that long preamble to go, when a company is first starting out and you're a small to medium-sized business and you're not in the position enough to tack on that overhead from a great marketing agency like yourself, what are some steps they can do to grow their marketing to get to the point where they can feel comfortable going with Ascend Digital and knowing that that's the next step there?
That's a great question, Nick. So, don't settle. So if you interview 3 marketing companies that you feel like initially were a good fit and none of them feel like after the meetings like they're a good fit, don't fucking settle. Don't choose the best of the worst because you need a marketing company. You're much better off saving your money, right? So how much is this hypothetical company doing in revenue, and where exactly are they in their timeline?
Let's say that they're 6 months to a year in and doing anywhere from 500K to $1 million. Like they're about to break that first $1 million.
Okay. Do they have a Google business profile?
They have a website. They do not have a Google business profile.
Okay.
They are getting some reviews.
Okay. So, like, what we want to do is we want to definitely create a Google business profile. We want, that helps build authority in Google. That's where people look most frequently, and those are the things that, Google reviews are going to have an impact in pretty much every facet of your online presence to varying degrees. So we're going to want to, 1, establish a Google business profile, and 2, we're going to want to start making sure that we're promoting our customers to go to Google to leave a review, not Facebook, not Foursquare, not Yelp. On the West Coast, I hear Yelp works really well. So Eric Richardson, I've seen him share some. No, don't show Eric Richardson. Actually, I think he's had issues with somebody from the West Coast. Sorry, I may have.
Just put the California flag.
Yeah, there you go.
Down.
Yeah. Yeah. Sorry for misrepresenting your position, Eric. Maybe it was him. I don't know. I can't call it. But all that to be said is, make sure you get your Google business profile, Nick. As the company owner, it is your obligation to make sure that you do that. Where are your leads coming from now, Nick? Where'd you do this $500,000 to $1 million in revenue from?
Yeah, it's a lot of referrals. Referrals are my biggest source, and there's a couple like Facebook marketing and stuff like that. It has some boosted and promoted posts and some Instagram videos here and there, but I do a little bit of Google ads too.
And you're managing all that yourself?
I'm trying to, and trying to like build it to the next side. It is tough.
It's hard out here in these streets. So, the first thing I would do is I would take a look at your website, and if you look at your website, the way you want to look at your website is like the owner's manual of your car, right? Because if you think about it, if you're looking for, let's say you get a new truck, Nick. You got that new F250, F350 with a nice lift on it, and sounds super loud because you got a aftermarket exhaust on it. Because you want to know.
The Dallas roofers all tuned in.
Listen, I'm not saying nothing about nobody, but here's what I'll say.
I love it.
The way that you would go, like if you didn't know what oil that you had to put in this new truck when it's time for an oil change, let's assume you reach in the owner's manual. Like, Nick, what's going to be your journey to figure out what oil you would need?
I'm going to definitely go either online, go to the owner's manual. I'm going to flip through and see if I need, 10W30, what's the case, and then, or just
are you going to go through those 400 pages page by page, starting at page 1, and hope to find and land where it says oil change?
Probably going to go to the index or the table of contents.
Yeah. So Google does the same thing, right? When they crawl your website, a lot of people, they'll build, like website companies, they'll build like a residential roofing page, and they vomit a bunch of words or not about residential roofing, and maybe they mention roof repair, roof inspection, roof replacement, storm damage. Sometimes they don't. Either way, neither one of those are conducive to a positive outcome for a user that's on Google and having a positive user experience. Google gives a shit about the user experience. Why? Because they're selfish capitalists. Because what happens is the better your experience is, the more likely you are to come back to the platform. Now, the more people that come back to the platform, the more people that are using the platform, the more likely they are to tell people about their platform. The more people that they have on their platform, the more they can charge you for those Google ads that you're running. Right? Does that make sense? Okay.
Makes sense.
So we want to have an abundance of information, and we want it categorically sound so that it's very easy for Google to find where this information is to recommend you for the services that you provide. Same thing with the customer, right? Because Google, we got to satisfy them to make sure that it's indexed, it's on the search engine somewhere, and that they can find it. But then, and they can position it if we're doing things like SEO down the road. But as a baseline, that's kind of how we want to think about the website. And then we want users that come to the website to be able to easily find what they're looking for. So what I would say is jot out all the different materials you guys use, the different services you guys offer, make an About Us page, make a Meet the Team page, get some headshots and bios. It'll cost you whatever, a couple $100 to have someone come out and do headshots. You got a small team, so you got that working for you right now. And do these things and create individual pages of content for all the different services you offer. You don't have to write 10,000 words, but if you write 500 words, 1,000 words, like great. Right now you got to be scrappy. So I would encourage you to keep being scrappy, because as you scale, as you begin to grow this thing, you're going to take a hit on your profitability, because you're going to have to invest in things like marketing. So while you have a little bit of time now, work on these things. And maybe, you invest 30 minutes of your time every other day into doing this. And then you can get it into, you said, what are you using for your website? Was it Wix, or are you doing it yourself, or do you have somebody that's doing it for you?
I'm using Wix right now. It's functional, Yeah. It's not the best, not the worst.
No, so let's get that content out on your Wix website as you build it, and another thing that you can do on that website is make some service area pages. So prioritize the top 10 cities where you want to be relevant in, and maybe choose a specific service that you want to be found for. Don't make it all roof replacement in this area. Maybe roof replacement, maybe roof repair, maybe roof installation, some semantic. So that you're covering different ways people are going to search the same thing, and that'll benefit you as well. So those are some grassroots things you can do for the website. Get active in social media. Find social media groups. Come prepared. If I'm going to Nick, you live at 123 Anywhere Avenue in, we'll say Buffalo, New York, because Buffalo is such a great city. So if I'm coming to you to sell you a roof, right? I'm going to come prepared with a presentation to make you feel compelled to buy that roof, right? Preparation is key. So let's assume you buy that roof from me. And now let's assume we're going through a walkthrough at the end of the job. Now I can come prepared with a few different local community groups in Buffalo that I know that people are consistently asking for roofs for, right? And Nick, you as a homeowner, you know how tough it was to find a reliable roofer that you can trust, right? Don't we want to make it as easy as possible for our neighbors and people in our community to find a trustworthy roofer?
Simple as pie.
Yeah, and I mean, you said that we did a really good job, right? So if I invite you to these few groups, would you mind just sharing your experience if you happen to see somebody asking for a roofing contractor, so that we can make sure that all the scary stories we hear about people's encounters with roofers doesn't happen to our neighbors?
Sounds easy enough.
Sounds easy enough. If you do that consistently, it will scale it on autopilot. I call it the social snowball effect. Heard it here, not first because I've said it elsewhere, but that's what that process is. And if you implement that consistently, frequently, early, often, and all the time, as you grow, you will consistently get more and more free leads from social media.
This is like the kind of content and the tips that really, really matter, because it's something. Referrals are always your best resource. They're the highest closing, the lowest cost per acquisition, and they're the ones that are going to really kind of help scale and grow your company, especially when you're first starting out. And if you have a surefire way of getting those referrals to the next step, which is the reviews, which is inviting them into the groups and everything else, and building what you just went through, you're going to be able to take that next step. You're going to be able to get to that next revenue goal, to that next crew goal, to that next salesperson goal. And then even going one step further on that, I always love the idea of scouting versus canvassing. So you're going to a house, you did that roof. It's called a 6-pack is what the guys at Lead Scout call it. Knock on the 2 neighbors there and the 3 across the street. You got 6 houses right there. And provide some value to it. Even before you go out there, before you start the job, do those same 6 houses. Do it when you quote the job, when you're starting the job, and when you finish the job. Put out your cards and everything else. And going back to that branding stuff, going next door, like, hey, Mr. Jones, I'm Nick from Guaranteed Roofing. We're doing the house next door. Just wanted to let you know that it's going to be a little bit noisy. You got some trucks here, but here's my card. Here's my information. If you do need anything, let me know. There might be some bags blowing over. Just give me a call. I'd be happy to come by after, making sure that it's all clean. I want to leave this in a better state than when we came here. And during that time, you gave them a card that's branded. Your trucks are branded. You got a yard sign that's branded. You're wearing a shirt that's branded, and you're consistently branding across that door, that area, door hangers and everything. those things are organic, very easy things to do to build up a brand recognition, to get that ROI back. Having business cards with QR codes that will actually bring people back to your information, whether it's, I'm not going to start promoting us by any means there, but like your website, so that you can get that brought back. You can drop them off at restaurants, at libraries, at sporting goods stores. Have those there so people can kind of see that, and that's a huge way to do it. But you, Mike, have such a good wealth of knowledge, and you've been doing this for how many years now, marketing?
Close to a decade.
Close to a decade. It's a lot of information that you've gained, a lot of situations that you've seen work and not work. I see online right now there's a bit of a trend that people are promoting, like doing courses for marketing if you're running a business. And I have my opinion on it. I think it's cool, but I have other opinions on it too. It's just a time management thing for me. Like I can't pick up 10 years of knowledge from a course, and I can't keep up with the trends as they change all the time because I'm not smart enough for that. But what are some of the things that you're seeing there, and where are some of the pros and what are some of the cons of doing courses for marketing? Yeah.
Stop wasting your money on courses. It's funny. I
didn't expect that.
I take the hard line. Well, it's funny because you see a lot of these courses. The one thing that they do to try to position themselves in a place of value is tired of paying marketing agencies and not getting a return, yada yada yada. And it's like context is super important. So for somebody who consistently provides value to his customers and my team, dude, without my team, like Ascend would obviously be nothing, and without my customers, so like I'm like the prime minister of this, like ceremonial position only. I have no authority. It's they do it all. So thank you to my team and my customers. But from a course side of things, I always laugh when I see that messaging. So my take on courses from the pro side, it can be wildly beneficial if you have somebody dedicated to taking that course, if they're able and willing to learn the information, and maybe that's watching the course 3-4 times. I don't know. Different people learn different ways. But if it's a video course, are they able and willing to watch as many times as possible to understand all the principles and how to execute what it is that they've learned? If they're going to do that and do that consistently, and if they're going to be with you for the long term, if you feel confident in that, right? So a lot of the times where I see courses go wrong is they don't have those things. They don't have that person, right? And the idea of liberate yourself from marketing agencies, take these things in-house. It's not a luxury. It's a requirement. Like, these are fucking utopian ideas, right? Give control back to yourselves. Stop being held prisoner. It's like, okay, let's fucking stop for a minute. Because honestly, the likelihood, well, here, what percentage of people actually adopt and implement a course when they buy it? My experience, like when I've done courses, I haven't fucking done it. Like I bought a Udacity course on video editing. I was very well intentioned to understand at a very granular level video editing so that I could, as a young company, create really good content on a consistent basis. Guess what I didn't fucking do? Didn't do the course, paid for it, didn't do it.
I'm still 60% of the way through an Excel course that I did last year. And I was just like, yeah, I'll finish it up. And I learned a lot, but I didn't implement it. Like, that's it.
I feel as if the majority of people who are going to do a course aren't going to implement the course because, and again, maybe it's because they have healthy ambitions, but it's just not pragmatic. It's not a practical solution because they just don't have the time. They don't have somebody that they can delegate it to. Again, if you have that person, it's fucking fantastic. Because yes, if we can have full control over our destiny as far as SEO, social media, things like that, and we have somebody that's well trained and competent in house, of course you're gonna save money. You're gonna have more control. You're not gonna have to worry about external companies having their hand in your cookie jar. Like, that's a really good thing. That's a really positive outcome. I just doubt the percentage of people that are able and willing to have that person in place and manage that person and make sure that they're getting what the optimal outcome that is intended for the course to provide in practice.
Interesting. Yeah, like I didn't expect that. I expected some of it, not all of it there. So that's it. That's good points, because I always look at it like, okay, any kind of education is important. Like I do random courses, but don't finish them all the time because I want to learn how to be a better manager, be a better leader, be a better company, learn tools differently, and grow that aspect. And I think it's important, but I've always kind of wondered on that too, is like, I love the idea of having an in-house marketing team. I think it's super great. We at Roofr have an in-house marketing team. But I know from just being here is things change so often, and you got to be on the fly, and you need to have someone dedicated to it. So that was always my concern with seeing those posts and being like, shit, like what if something changes? What if Google changes their algorithm, Facebook does, or whatever? Is there a course that's going to be up that quickly? Or how are we going to get that information?
Refreshing the content is also super important. And by the way, for SEO, going back to old content that performed well or didn't perform well and making additions and edits to it, that's also a really good tip. I'll give you the first one free. Here you go.
Ooh.
But that's a really, really good point, refreshing the content as things evolve, because things evolve very quickly. And like a separate issue is the in-house marketing thing. There's a separate opportunity issue, however you want to perceive it. I've often seen like, hey, I'm thinking about hiring somebody internally. What are some things I should look for to build this person into a successful in-house marketing team? Essentially, they want a team out of an individual person. You can hire somebody for $30,000 a year, and you can have them use ChatGPT for all your SEO, and then they can do this. They can go to home shows, and they can do your social media. It's like, okay, let's stop. It's crazy. The same person that's going to develop and edit content or create social media posts and go interact with people at a trade show, and is going to run your Google ads. These are all different profiles of people. This is not one person. If you find this one person, they probably own a marketing agency, because they're extremely rare where they have enough understanding on a wide array of products and services that you couldn't pay them enough to come sit in your office for 8 hours a day, 40 hours a week to do your bidding from a marketing side of things. It just wouldn't make sense to them.
So with that being said, going back to kind of our original topic here about small companies needing to grow, would you recommend them kind of starting off with a tiny course to learn a little bit to get to that next level to then hire a marketing agency? YouTube
is an amazing resource. There's a ton of we're in an information age where we're inundated. We're getting pulled every which way. By Facebook, by TikTok, by YouTube, by our friends, by our family, right? So it's really hard. But do some research. Find a couple people that you feel like you can that have gotten good endorsements. They put out what seems to be objectively good content. They're getting positive feedback. Follow their content, right? Like that's an easy way to do it. Opportunity. So it's May, right? Guess what just happened? Bunch of kids just graduated from local universities. I don't know what it's like in Canada, but here it's like second, third week of May, kids graduate from college. Yeah. Guess what those kids need? They need jobs. Like the underemployment of college graduates is a real fucking thing, right? So if you can provide value, ideally you would have gotten a couple months ago, gotten with like the chair of a department and asked them, because those chairs of departments, they've got favorite students. They're their favorite students for a really good reason, because they're proactive. They represent the university well. Right, and they're likely going to be placed in good positions. Why not your company be that good position? Reach out to them, explain to them, like, look, we're a local company in a local community. We understand how hard it can be for college graduates to get placed because they lack real-world experience, right? So we want to help solve that issue. We have a great opportunity. This is the job description. Do you have any recommendations of upcoming graduates that might be a good fit for the position? Now you can get somebody that's super cheap, right? Like, I hate to say it that way, but a college grad, the expectations are super low, and they're not entitled. They're likely less entitled than the guy that's marketing guy that's been around for 10 years that you're going to try to bring on.
And also up with the new trends.
Up with the new trends, right?
That's important.
And hopefully you find one that's, if they're getting recommended by the chair, for instance, of a department, they're likely coachable, right? So there's no bad habits that you have to reteach, because those are tough to do. That's a tough feat. So you create a situation where you get somebody who has an opportunity to grow with your company that is likely going to be wildly ambitious and can do these things. And maybe it's something where they start out at part-time, right? And then you have them handle your Google business profile listing, your social profiling, getting in the local community groups and updating content or shooting YouTube content, like whatever. Create expectations, find that role. And I think a lot of people underestimate the impact that especially like local universities can bring as far as leveraging it as a resource for a young or old company of any size.
Yeah, it's a huge point in bringing that in, whether it is from even on the trade side of things, going to your local colleges and stuff like that, trade schools, and get recruiting people from within there too, because you're going to get people that could lead crews eventually, build them up throughout your industry, get them to a project manager and everything there. So, but I do want to add one thing there is if you do decide to do a course or hire someone from the a university or college and have them in as your in-house marketing person, it's important to realize too that having someone there doesn't mean that that's your be-all end-all. Companies as big as you name like a large marketing company out there use and outsource different marketing opportunities. So finding out what your specialty is, like maybe you got a company that's really good at branding. Your guy is really good at branding and really good at social, but not great on SEO. You can still, and you should still, plug that hole with hiring a marketing company that is good at SEO. So even if you have someone internal, it's important to take a look at where you can kind of like plug a hole, kind of make sure that that pipeline is going to stay clear, and having someone in there that you could trust, like a marketing agency like Ascend Digital Media. So having Ascend in there, like plugging in that hole and being someone that's updated on the trends, knows what's going on in the industry, knows what works, what doesn't work, that's not a bad play. You can have something internal for your internal things that you know that you can continue to build, but making sure that the important stuff is taken care of. And that was always my concern. I was like, courses are sweet, education's great, and that's why I was curious what you thought. But I was always worried about like shit changes, marketing moves fast, all that stuff. So how are you going to make sure that you're always on top of it and that always someone's taking care of it? Because once you see that, I've seen horror stories of SEO just dropping off the face of the earth, and that website is like impossible to find, and you are screwed in your market for a while. And I don't even know how long it takes to build that back up, but I'm assuming not overnight.
It's not overnight, I can tell you that.
No.
Another one of those situations where I don't have the answer, but I can tell you what it's not. Not overnight.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
So,
go ahead.
Yeah, go ahead.
No, you're the host. First. Take it.
Oh, of course. Well, I wanted to know a little bit more about like, what are some of the things, if you are looking to do a course on, what are some things that are not fully marketed, like SEO and all that stuff to build out, that would be good to do?
That's a really good question. And I think that like a cop-out answer is like anything that you do in your day-to-day, or if you look at somebody who you aspire to be in your market or outside your market that like is a mentor, mentee, or just somebody that you have aspirations based on their level of success in production, take a look at the things they do, right? And try to duplicate, the things that they've done. Maybe reach out to them and ask them, like, hey, how did you get to where you are today? And try to figure out, like, hey, people that have done this and have been here before, these are the things that I've done, so this is where I should invest my time. This is where I should invest my money. I think that's a really good way to go about it, because I can sit here and speculate as far as like, hey, this is what you could do. This is what you should do. It's funny, I watched a short today from Alex Hormozy. He's like, we should get rid of the word should, right? You should do this. You should do that. I should do this. Like, just do what you want to do what you think's going to be. However, I digress. But I think that it's easy to sit here and speculate what people can, shouldn't do, versus like find somebody that's been there before and ask them. And then ask find a couple of those people, right? Because it's going to look different for a lot of different people. But if you can find people that have had success and start understanding where they spent their time and energy, maybe you take portions of that and implement it. Maybe you implement all of it and take course on all those things. Or maybe you don't take any of it. I would assume that you would take at least some of it, But what degree of how much you take and what iterations you make to that recipe is fully incumbent upon you. It's almost like a sales pitch, right? You have a script, and the idea is that in 6 months, you're not going to be reading that script line for line, but you're going to have a really good baseline understanding of overcoming every objection, how to frame the value, how to close conceptually, so that, hey, if you ever stumble, you can always, if you know this script inside and out, you can always go right back to that part of the conversation and then cite it if need be. But more likely, you're not going to be the guy that sounds like a robot. You're going to make it your own, right?
Of course.
Because this script we know has worked for the last 15 sales reps that we had. So your number 16 is going to work for you. But again, you might modify that. You might change different things. You might use different analogies than what the company provides to you. But it's still an effective way to become better at sales, is having that script, especially for people that haven't done sales before.
Yeah, it's a big thing that we do here, is just kind of always kind of adapting and changing and looking at the different opportunities. And I think one of the things that you can do, it's not necessarily like a course, but you talked about reaching out and finding out about people. I'm going to use the finger thing again and say, drop this guy in. Our boy TJ McCormick. He does a lot of social courses. He'll go into a company, sit down with them, talk about what works and what doesn't, and kind of build something out. There's a lot of different people out there that can do stuff like that. Invest in that. Invest on an afternoon with a professional, whether it's on a Zoom call or in person or whatever the case is, and find out what is working for other companies. And that's what's great about what Corey Combs does with that networking involving just everybody in his area, all different companies. Find out what has worked for them and what hasn't, because you can learn from that and save yourself a lot of wasted time and a lot of kind of bad energy and possibly a lot of money. So you really want to make sure on all that stuff to make sure that you are listening to people, you are talking to people and finding out the right thing for your company, because people, if you think it's a bad idea, somebody's done it already. So you can kind of learn and not have to dive into it. So
cut down the learning curve. It's
exactly
valuable, because it sucks to lose money. It sucks worse to lose time, right? You lose a year of opportunity, 2 years of opportunity, because you're trying things that other people have already tried and determined it as a complete fucking loss. Just by virtue of having conversations with people, if you can save yourself a year of time, like, what is a year of time worth to you, right? And I asked this question not too long ago. I was like, if you could buy back an hour of time, what would it be worth? And of course, it was everyone turned into Socrates and Plato, right? Like, well, which I appreciate. I'm being a jerk, but if you, depending on the context, the hour would be worth a lot more, a lot less, but. What about if it's for the future, right? If I could say, hey, I need an extra 40 hours this week, like, what would you pay for that? Well, now multiply that, those 7 days by 52 weeks. Like, that's fucking crazy. That's a lot of time and a lot of opportunity that you could spend elsewhere. So, again, if we could narrow the scope as far as where we want to spend our time, where we want to exert energy and effort into things that are more productive based on history, you have a better likelihood that those things are going to be successful and they're going to make an impact for you and for your company.
The definition of insanity is trying to do the same thing over and over again, expecting a different result. So use your colleagues, use your competition as examples, and realize, like, hey, that just doesn't work.
Right.
I'm not going to waste my time on it. I can spend my time being more creative somewhere else. So I got one more question to wrap it up.
Okay.
And it is about posting and social. What's too much? What's like the ideal amount, and what kind of content as a company should you be posting on social?
Well, tell you what I do. So I record content. We do podcasts. I do monologue style content, and the objective that I give to my team is I want 3 pieces of short form video a day. We're gonna have 1 long form piece of content every week. And then based on however I feel, there's less structure there on my personal page. Like, as things come up, as things pop into my mind, I'll post. A lot of times it's questions, right? Because questions yield engagement typically. I asked the other day, like, what's the best way to generate commercial leads? Because I truly wanted to know. And it got a lot of engagement. So if I'm a roofing company, it would take a different, there'd be some nuance to it. But I don't think that you should get away from doing content from a video perspective, short and long form content. What are some things that we should talk about? I don't know. Think about all the things that your sales team gets asked, or things that you've gotten asked your entire career by homeowners. When it's it's an objection, it's something that's standing in the way from them choosing you, and how you choose to articulate the solution or overcome that objection, right? Because if one homeowner asks you, or 2 or 5 or 10, likely there's a lot more homeowners that need to hear that information, whether or not they know it. They might not know enough about the context to ask a question. So if you can equip them with solutions to problems that they're going to have in the future proactively, you're building a brand, and you're building yourself up as an authority in the market. So I think that that's a really good way to go about it. For my storm guys, not a lot of storm guys like to listen to me, but if you're listening to me and you're a storm guy, act as if you're sitting up on the roof with an adjuster and you're selling them on why they should buy this roof, and everything that they're going to push back on you about, and things that you talk about as far as proving this damage or proving why this part of the policy is intact and this needs to be covered as a result of that. We have a matching law which dictates this needs to be covered because this slope is fucked. Whatever it is, I don't know. I'm just a marketing guy. But if you think of it through that vein, it's going to be a lot more easy for you to come up with content that you can spit out in 30, 60 seconds to add value to people, to give them information that will, again, be helpful to them either now or in the future.
And that's a huge thing there. That's like what you just touched on there is massive. Like, I see one guy who does it really, really well is Michael Miller from Roof Central out in the Carolinas. He has blog posts about what's a hail hit, what happens to your shingle there, what's going on with it. He's got videos of him on the roof, taking a look at it, doing inspections, being like, what's wrong with this roof, makes it into a game. And it's not for us roofers, it's for his homeowners, his market to see. And they eat it up. There's a lot of comments, a lot of interaction there, and you're becoming an authority figure there. People know your face, know your games, know your info. And I think that from a retail or a storm side, with your restoration or retail, those objections that you mentioned there, those common objections that you hear time and time again, write a blog post, write a social post, do a quick video. That stuff is huge because you're going to face those objections. You have something to point to, but also if you're going to face those objections, answering them before as like that's a way that someone discovers your company is going to separate yourself from the competition.
Oh yeah.
So something I say consistently through every single one of my demos is separate yourself from the competition. You want to be different, and you want to be different in a good way, and answering questions and becoming an authority figure is the way to do it.
Yeah, no doubt. And here's the thing, Mike, I'm not good on camera. Well, guess what? I fucking wasn't good on camera either. I've got a client, Brock McClellan Contractor and Roofing. So the first time that we did a video shoot, I'll leave it to Brock to drop in the comments what the outcome was. And now it's reps though, right? Like if you're a boxer, the first time you step in the ring and you're sparring for the first time, like you get beat up a little bit. Your shoulders are super tense, right? You can't relax, so like that drains you. You get an adrenaline dump. You're not moving the way you should be, the way you've been drilling, whatever, right? So like it's less than optimal, but you do repetitions, right? You get in there again. If you're lifting weights, the more reps you do, the stronger you're going to get. It's the same thing with video. It's fucking intimidating. I am a very outgoing person. I love talking to people. The first time that I turned on the camera, I was fucking stuttering like a buffoon. It was bad, right?
Yeah.
And it's not typical of me, but there's something about when you hit record, it's like, fuck. So,
it's real.
With that being said, fight through it. Shoot some video. Who cares? You're making a bigger deal than it needs to be. Now, let's say you can't get past that. Find someone else in your company that can. It's okay. Find a salesperson that's charismatic, that'll push through. Whoever it is, find somebody in your company that can help with it. Also, like you said, the folks in the Carolinas, it doesn't necessarily have to be, this is Mike Stearns, I'm up on the roof, we're doing an inspection today here in Buffalo, New York. You could simply be talking while filming the roof. If you could see here, what this dimple in the shingle is, this was actually hit by a piece of hail. We had a hailstorm that came through last week. This is evidence that your roof is damaged, and this can compromise your roofing system because here's what happened. It delaminates, which causes more opportunity for water to penetrate. And I don't even know if any of this is true or not, but I'm just going off the top.
I like it.
And as a result of that, what we can do is we can submit an insurance claim to see if you're covered. We actually had 3 people in this neighborhood that we already had a roof bought for by their insurance coverage because it was compromised as a result of the hailstorm. If you don't choose us, that's fine, but here are some things to look out for when you're dealing with a contractor to make sure you're making a good choice. Now you pivot that into a place of value, right? So you're talking about the issue, you're even giving them an opportunity to reach out to you, but you're closing with value as far as like, hey, you don't have to choose us, but if you're going to choose someone else, here's some questions to ask.
Yeah, I see those as being like the most valuable from like a customer perspective. So let's take roofing out of it because I've been a roofer since I was a kid. My family's a roofer, so I got that. So when I see roofing content, I'm attracted to it automatically. But regular homeowner, not thinking about the roof. It's not a sexy purchase. It's not a new kitchen. So they're not like looking at roofing until they need it to be, until they need to with like a open eyes. But let's put in marketing. Since we're on the topic, I'm not good at marketing. I'm learning about marketing. I was not very interested a year ago or 2 years ago in marketing, and recently become more and more interested. I like seeing those kind of content, and as soon as I see someone like you on social, or I see like even stuff like Gary Vee and stuff are saying, I'm going to listen. I'm like a short-term video to kind of work with my ADHD.
Yeah.
That's key. And getting like little tidbits of information helps me every once in a while. You got to think about roofing the same way. If you're putting out roofing stuff, it's not sexy. It's not something that people want to know. But it's going to be able to pull things in. Make it flashy, make it good, make it interesting. Pick up those shingles there. You got shingles on there, lift it up. You're like, okay, well, what we got here, we got a low nail here shining on there. We call that a shiner in the roofing industry. And what that's going to do, that's going to actually cause water penetration. It's not on the double layer of the lamination, so it's going to be higher instance of blow-offs, etc. Quick 30-second video and move on. But if you continue to post that, what I found is, for me, with marketing and sales stuff, now when I'm on my Facebook and I go through the reels that are on there, I always am getting stuff for marketing and Facebook. Marketing, Facebook, as well as sales stuff. I'm always getting that information, and roofing is going to be the same thing. It's going to catch that algorithm and pull it in. My TikTok, my Instagram's different. My Instagram's all sports, F1, and dogs. That's it. So, but it's and dogs. But it's interesting to actually open up that door and provide that short-term content that is like head scratching, that's interesting, because it's going to open up the door for more going down the line.
Yeah, that's a really good point, and you couldn't be more right, and I agree with you 100%. This message is approved by Mike Stearns.
It's like a big approve button hits the screen. I like it.
Guaranteed. Guaranteed stamp.
Ooh, I like it. Well, Mike, this was fun.
Yes.
I clearly need some work on being a host, but it was great. Normally I have Pete, and like Pete's a great host. Pete like runs the conversation, and I'm just like the Robin to his Batman. And it's just, I'm comfortable with that. I'm very comfortable with that. Being a host and trying to lead the conversation, way more difficult. But you know what? There's a first for everything, and I appreciate you allowing me. Oh, well, I thank you. It makes me feel a little bit better. But I appreciate you having me on. I appreciate you liking the idea, because I think that this could provide a lot of value to roofing companies and small to medium-sized businesses up to large businesses wanting to know a little bit about marketing, get a little bit more in it. Hopefully I asked the questions that you were wondering as a roofing company. So I appreciate you being open to this and having some fun with me here.
Yeah, thanks for your time, jam-packing this at 7 a.m. the day that you're leaving for a trip to Italy and making this a priority. I really appreciate you. I appreciate all the listeners. You guys are absolutely amazing. Thank you for your commitment of your time, because I know that it's a scarce commodity in today's day and age, and the fact that you choose to spend it here with us means a lot to me. And thank you to the team at Roofr. You guys are fantastic. The products and services that you provide, along with the customer experience for dozens and dozens of my clients currently and previously, is amazing, and for that I am eternally grateful. If you guys aren't working with Roofr, you should, and I'll go ahead and drop